Good day, everyone. Welcome to our pharmacology class, a patient-centered nursing process approach. So here in the study of pharmacology, we'll be focusing on how nurses approach the administration of medication and how the nursing process is involved here in the administration of medications. So the learning outcomes for the subject at hand will be to identify key events in the history of pharmacology, knowing how the administration of medication is done through all these years are beneficial for us as nurses because it will help us in understanding the crucial role and crucial effects of medications in the different events, different patients, and different time frames. Also, to be able to explain the interdisciplinary nature of pharmacology, giving an example of how knowledge from different sciences impact the nurse's role in drug administration. So we're talking about how the different medical fields are helping the nursing process get involved in the administration of medication, especially on how nurses would be able to help out patients, especially coming from the different fields, from the doctors or medical doctors, and also from the pharmacists themselves. Number three, outline the major differences between prescription and over-the-counter drugs. How do they differ? How do they give support to our patients and how accessible they really are in day-to-day basis of needs. And lastly, explain the four phases of approval for therapeutic and biologic drugs. There are four phases, and each phase would help us understand how the medications function and how the medications from the prototype part or the orphan drug part would become accessible if and only if it is acceptable to different agencies in the government. Now let's start. Here are some of the fundamental concepts of pharmacology. We need to understand each terminology so that we'd be able to learn more and learn properly the subject pharmacology. So pharmacology is the branch of science that deals with the study of drugs and medication. So we're talking about how it works in the body, its composition, how it functions inside the body when it is absorbed, the actual usage, and if it's showing signs of toxicity or poisoning to the patient. And if not, then it would be highly appreciated and valuable for the patients. The pharmacist then is the science and technique of drug preparation and dispersion or dispensing. We're talking about the health professionals. How do they prepare each medications and when is the time they are to dispense the medication? How many should they dispense? And where would they rely on in terms of the dispensing of the medication? Also, it is linked to the health sciences with chemical sciences aiming to show the importance, the safety, the effectiveness of the use of pharmaceutical drugs. So we're talking about how these things are linked together and how they are helpful for the patients, how they are effective for the patients, and how they are safe for the patients. Pharmaceutics then is the discipline of pharmacy, dealing with the process of turning either the new chemical or an old drug into actual medication, how it is useful, how it is used, how it is safe, and how it is effective for the patient. Then we have pharmacokinetics, describing the way on how the body uses the medication. We're talking about how it is moved from one place to another in the body upon absorption, either from the skin, from the mouth, from the anal area, and the different routes of medication up until the excretion once it is used. We're also talking about absorption, uh, the availability inside the body, how it is dispersed, how it is metabolized or absorbed, and if it's in excess, how it is removed from the body. So the other one will be the pharmacodynamics. We're talking about the effects of medications and the mechanisms of the medications in the body. Therapeutics then is the use of drugs in the prevention and treatment of diseases. We're talking about how the medications that we consume prevents diseases or helps in the treatment of ongoing illnesses for the patients. Toxicology then would be the adverse effects of medication. When we say adverse effects of medication, we're talking about the undesired effect of medication or the severe or life-threatening effect of medication, and also the unwanted effects of in the body. Not only is it the side effect, but the unwanted part. We're talking also about the study of poisons or the toxicology inside the body once the drugs pave way on its effects inside our body. Chemotherapy, on the other hand, is the use of strong chemicals. We use these types of chemicals for our body so as to remove or eliminate and possibly to rule out cancer, a very strong type of illness in the body. However, chemotherapy does not only destroy the bad cells in our body, it also destroys many of the good cells or good living cells in our body, which is why they are considered strong chemicals or really powerful chemicals. Though they may cause treatment for the body, however, it could also cause destruction, could also cause negativity for our body. Next one, where pharmacy is the science of identification or trying to know, the compounding or bringing up together, and the dispensing of the medication. So we're talking about how the drugs are identified and created in different forms, in different weights, in different masses, and how it is dispensed. We also include the collection, isolation, and purification of chemicals, how they are made, and how they are standardized for uh, use as medical substances. Then we have pharmacognosy. It is a branch of knowledge concerning with medicinal drugs coming from plants or other plant resources. We're talking about also how the plants or natural sources greatly benefit the patients or the medical practitioners in distributing the medications for the patient, even the pharmacists, how they'd be able to use these natural substances in favor of drug creation. Pharmacovigilance then will be the monitoring of licensed drugs that are in circulation. There may be times wherein after years of circulation, it could show the effects in the body. They could show different um, adverse effects or side effects to different people using them. So we must always remember not because a medication has been existing for the past 10 years, they are already acceptable or they are without adverse effects in the body. Now, we proceed with the fundamental concepts of pharmacology with regards to the history itself. Recorded many years ago, or thousands of years ago, from the civilization of Babylonians, the early surviving prescriptions on clay tablets, so that would be 3000 BC, as compared now in 2024 AD. So we're talking about the length of 5024 years ago. For the Chinese, recorded in Pen Tao, or the Great Herbal, it is a book or a collection of documents wherein there are 40 volumes of notes regarding plant remedies dating 2700 BC. So that would be 4724 years ago by approximation. In Egypt, 1500 BC, there are archives of documents known as the Ebers Papyrus, which recorded remedies that they have practiced during their time or during their civilization here on earth, wherein it existed or possibly existed 3524 years ago. During the Dark Ages, because of the presence of different barbarians and destructive groups of people like the Goths, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, and the like, there had been many destructions of the records made by people, or there could have been no records at all. However, we would likely assume that herbal medications during these times were used in order to remedy or give clearance to the different illnesses, the different complaints, and different forms of uh, health issues in the patients. Now, the first recorded reference to the word pharmacology was found before in Pharmacologia, Senmenundictio, and Materiam Medicum, done through Samuel Dale, as he discovered in 1693. Now we take note of the modern pharmacology, which happened as early as the 1800s. So this history of pharmacology would greatly help us understand the importance and significance of medication for us as nurses to be able to give out the needs of the patients, address out their concerns, and help in giving out the needed help or the needed response to their complaints. Now, for the classification of therapeutic agents as drugs, biologics, and complementary and alternative medicine therapies, we have the three types or three general categories. We have letter A or number one, drugs or medications. We need to understand this part. We also have the biologics or where the medications come from. And then complementary and alternative medicines. What are these? That's what we're going to find out. Number one, we have drug. When we say drug, the actual chemical agent. These are the tangible medicines on hand, chemically made, chemically built up or compounded, which is capable of giving biologic response within the body. So we're talking about medicines that are responsive for our bodies. And then we have after the administration of medication, it is called, or after the administration of drugs, it is now called medication. So always remember, if it's not yet administered to the patient, it is called a drug. Once it is administered to the patient, we are then to call it medication. Now, in a larger perspective, drugs and medications are part of the day-to-day activities of our body. For example, when we eat food, when we breathe, those needs of the body and how the body responds to them greatly show our day-to-day living along with or alongside these medications. Next, we have for the drugs that we just discussed, we have the term drug names. Of course, medications should be identified according to their names. So we have the term generic or non-proprietary name. These are medications with generalized name for the whole public, for the whole world or different countries to accept or call, not according to the manufacturer, but as a given name in order to identify the functions and needs of these medications. For example, or the best example that we have is paracetamol. That is a generic name for the medication. And another one in the list, we have brand name or trade name or the proprietary name. This is the name of the medication given by the actual manufacturer. So, as we have the example, paracetamol, there could be a drug name called the Biogesic, Tylenol, another one, Panadol, for example. So those names given by the manufacturers would be called the brand name. Next one, we have the chemical name. So in here, we're talking about name of medications according to their chemical structure. So, with this thing said, there are medications that could be given only according to their name. Like for example, or chemical name. For example, magnesium sulfate. These are given for to mothers who are carrying their babies, but they currently have high blood pressure. Another one would be sodium bicarbonate, which is given to patients with very high acidic level in their stomachs, or they are having hyperacidity. Then we also have potassium chloride. This is administered to patients with depleted or low levels of potassium inside their bodies. These are examples of the medications, how they are properly labeled. So labeling of medications are important or is important. It shows the pharmacy name and address. It also shows the code number of the medication, the person getting the medication, the instructions, the name of the drug and its strength. We also have the number of times it would be refilled, but that would be in other countries. In our country, if it's a prescription medication, it is already written by the doctor or medical doctor giving the medication. Also, the expiration date, the name of the medical doctor prescribing the medicine, the contact number of the drugstore, and also the date when it is given or pre-filled. Then in our right side of this slide, we have a medication called BioFlu, or with the manufacturer's name or brand name of BioFlu, with also prescribed inscribed within the box will be your phenylephrine hydrochloride, chlorpheniramine maleate, and paracetamol. So that would be the medication or the drug put together and created by a company in which they named it BioFlu. Then we have cefuroxime. It is a type of antibiotics. It is manufactured through a vial system. It is powdered in a way so as to prevent um, immediate expiration of the medication. Another one would be another form of paracetamol wherein it is in its ampule form, liquid in nature, and it is administered also through intravenous administration. So these examples would greatly show us how the medications differ from one another and how they are manufactured and created. Now, another form of the classification of therapeutic agents, we have number two, the biologics. These are naturally produced from either animals, from the microorganisms, or from our body themselves. So we have the hormones, for example, the blood products and components. So the blood itself could be considered as medication, especially for patient with anemia. Also the vaccines coming from the different microorganisms that could affect the body. So they are either inactivated or chopped down into pieces, wherein once detected by the white blood cells, they would greatly react with these organisms in our body. Then another example, the coming from the body themselves would be, or itself would be, the stem cells, which is used for patients suffering from severe types of illnesses such as cancer. So these biologics are used in the treatment of various illnesses, various medical conditions, and various medical concerns. Now we have number three, the complementary and alternative medicine therapy. These are not exactly limited to drugs, but alternative medicine such as plant extracts, powdered form of herbs, the vitamins and minerals we consume as manufactured by different therapeutic agencies. And then we also have dietary supplements should people would want to lose weight or gain weight. Then we also have unconventional techniques such as body massage, acupuncture, and biofeedbacks, or even hypnosis. Now, there are two types overall of medications or drugs. They could be considered as either prescription or over-the-counter drugs. So they are these two, the prescription and over-the-counter drugs, they are legal drugs in nature. However, they could either be prescribed by a doctor or medical doctor, or they could be bought by patients or clients in different drugstores or various drugstores. Now we'll be outlining the major differences between the two methods of dispensing drugs. Now we proceed first with prescription medications. To obtain prescription drugs, of course, there must be the doctor's orders. The patient or the immediate family member of the patient must have their or must secure first the doctor's orders in order to purchase or have the rights to purchase the medication. It is advantageous in nature because the nurse practitioner or the healthcare provider, such as the doctors, could have time to check out the patient first, determine specific medical or nursing diagnosis, and also measure out and check out the patient's current condition by monitoring first various signs or vital signs coming from the patient in order to disperse the needed amount of medication. Then we also have the opportunity to educate the patients on what and how to use the medication, especially helping them understand first the side effects of the medication. Then we have over-the-counter medication. When we say over-the-counter medication, these are drugs that you can buy anywhere, any day, anytime, in different drugstores such as Mercury Drugs, Watson's, or Prime Drug, or even drugs that are available for the public or drugstores for the public. Then you also have guidelines, but patients may not follow these guidelines at times. However, uh, When not followed, these over-the-counter drugs could have serious adverse effects. Like, for example, a person going around a park, walking, did not see where he or she is walking, ending up with a twisted ankle. Now, in order to address the issue, the person asked family relatives or friends to buy painkillers such as mefenamic acid. However, because of the person's need and want to have the pain immediately eliminated or toned down, instead of drinking just one mefenamic acid, they may or might consume at least 4 or 5 of these drugs. So, because of that, it could cause damage within their kidneys or their livers, especially, which is why OTC drugs could be readily available, but the consumers must first understand how to use, when to use, and where to use these medications. One advantage would be they do not need the prescription of doctors. No appointments are necessary. And also, these OTC drugs could react with different products such as food, herbal medications, prescription drugs, and other OTC drugs. Be mindful that self-treatment is not good. The best way, if there are medications or illnesses that are foregoing or ongoing within our day-to-day activities, and it's not being treated anymore by the OTC medications that we have, it is better to have checkups, better to have prescription medications instead of the continuous use of these types of medications. Now, on the up until 19th century, there are few standards or few guidelines so that people would be protected from uh, drug overuse or the misuse of drugs. There are different drugs, different medications, different practices that are ongoing or going on around the world during that time, such as the use of rattlesnake oil for pain on the joints of different patients according to their belief, the use of epilepsy treatment if the patient is high or intoxicated with alcohol or having hysteria or spasms in the body, and also the use of fat reducers to have slimmer body shapes. Now, we have the term pharmacopoeia. This is a list of medical references which summarizes the different drugs according to their purity, according to strength, and how they are made, or even how to use them. This one is a chart of timeline during the 1800s, which recorded the beginning of the early concerns of people for the use of pharmaceutics or medications. So we'll be going on, or we'll be discussing some of them and help you understand the importance of history in pharmacology. Now we have the role of food and drugs. We have first the Bureau, or the government organization for monitoring the different food and drugs being created and distributed around the world. So we first have our Food and Drug Administration, same in the Philippines. In the US, they have this one established uh, from the Department of Health and Human Services. A branch of the FDA will have the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, wherein there should be control if a medication is for either prescription or for a OTC. Also, they are linked with the facilitating the availability of medications for safety and effectivity of the drugs. Also, the removal of unsafe and ineffective drugs from the market, and improving the health of different people or various people, providing clear understanding about the drugs, the information about it, and the safe and effective use of these medications. Now, any pharmaceutical laboratory, either or whether private, public, or academic, should always have the approval of the Food and Drug Administration before selling their own creation of medication or drug. We have now, as part of the different medications, when a person buys a box of a specific medicine, included in this one or are lists called black box warnings, wherein inside of it are lists of the pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, the use, the actual weight, and the actual functions of the medicine, where to use them, how to use them. Is it orally administered, anally administered, or through intravenous, or if it is topical in nature? Also, you could find inside these packets are or package inserts are the adverse effect, the side effects on various types of people, and also where and when to store these medications, and also who manufactured and when it is manufactured, including the expiration date of the medicine. So that is why it is important to always check for the package inserts within different medications that are brought, especially the OTC drugs. So another one is the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. They regulate the different serums, vaccines, and blood products coming from various biologics or natural substances. Another one would be the Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, wherein dietary supplements, herbal products, and the like must be regulated at all times by the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994. Then we have the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. This one composes the federal government's lead agency, so that the CAM are acceptable as medications through research and additional informations. Then we have the different phases of approval for therapeutic and biologic drugs. These phases could help people to understand how medications are made, how they are tested, and when and how long would it take before a medication is considered plausible or viable or available. Now, with regards to the phases, they are as follows. So we start first with the preclinical investigation. When we say preclinical investigation, it involves extensive laboratory research. Of course, before the medications are properly formulated, there must be checked first. They must be researched first. What is the purpose? What is the function? And how are they helpful for the patient? They must, or the scientists must perform a series of tests on humans and microbial cells. The patients must show the reactions, or the test subjects must show their reactions with regards to the medications, and also specific types of documentations must be present, and also studies are performed in different species of animals also, not only humans. And of course, to examine the effectiveness of the medications or drugs at different varying doses so that the creators like the pharmacists, pharmacologists, the chemical engineers are able to check the different adverse effects of the drug. That is for your preclinical investigation. If those things surpass, or those tests surpass the expected outcome, then they would proceed to the clinical investigation. The second phase of drug testing, which takes place in three different stages. It is termed the clinical phase trials. For the clinical phase trials, they are the longest part of the drug approval process. Clinical pharmacologists first perform tests on volunteers so that they can check if um, they have different reactions on the medications. They need to check for volunteers to determine proper dosages, and so as to check if each dose would have specific adverse effect on each volunteer. And then large groups of selected patients must be gathered. However, since this is a drug, the large groups or groups of people should have a particular disease that is common with each and every one of them when they are administered with the medication. After that, when this is viable, the Food and Drug Administration or authority will then check for the documentations. They will have their own time or own pace of checking out the clinical investigation. Remember, the clinical investigation could take from 2 years up until 10 years, with an average of 5 years, depending on the type of medication that is being created. Now, these tests, when they are approved, the manufacturers could then apply for the new drug application review. In this third phase of the drug approval process, and during this phase, the name of the drug or the brand is then finalized. Clinical phase 3 trials and animal testings may continue. It depends on the occurring results obtained from the clinical testing. And the FDA is permitted up until 6 months to check It could last up until 2 or 3 years, depending on the type of drug. And if the new drug application is approved, the process continues to the final phase. However, if the new drug application is rejected, there is a suspension on the process until noted, and the concerns are addressed by the pharmaceutical company, which is why it is important always to have your medications properly documented, properly checked, and properly recorded for the benefit of the new drug application review. And then you have your post-marketing surveillance, wherein after the drug has been approved, after the application, the final phase of the drug approval process begins, wherein the purpose of this phase is to then survey for harmful drug effects in a larger population. Remember, they started in a large group of people within the testing phase. However, this will then expand in the market where various types of people from different sectors in the world may have the opportunity to try out the medication, and also different cultures, norms, mores, and traditions may have their own chance for the medication to be present with them. So, some adverse effects take longer to appear and may not be identified until the drug is circulated to a really large number of people. And it would take, or it may even take larger or longer years or longer time for the medications to really show the adverse effects. This is the chart on how the phases of approval are done. Again, we start with the clinical investigation. The phase 1, wherein the range of 1 to 3 years or an average of 18 months may show significant changes in or significant results with regards to the creation of drugs at varying doses. Could be a short-term or long-term type. Then the clinical investigation starts with a range of 2 to 10 years or an average of 5 years at varying doses and varying clinical phases of trials. Then the new drug application review will start, where 2 months to 7 years may start the process or will start the process of checking, or an average of 24 months. So for post-marketing studies or the phase 4, the pharmaceutical companies or even the Food and Drug Administration or authority will check for reports of adverse reactions, where surveys, samplings, and testings are given for the people. And lastly, inspections for drug production may be present. Federal legislation. The federal legislation has its own purpose or primary purpose, which is to attempt to protect the people from impure, toxic, ineffective, or untested medications before public sale. Always remember that there are certain specific medications that could cause problems, that could cause dangers to specific patients, especially for those people who would like sales as much as possible without looking into their laws and regulations given by the different government agencies. So the first law to regulate drugs was the Food and Drug Act of 1906. However, because of the fact that they would like to prohibit misbranded and adulterated drugs, it did not address the concerns regarding the effectiveness and safety of different drugs, which is why we must all be careful in checking out or in even using the different medications that are present in the market. We must check first if this is an FDA approved type of medication so as to ensure that in we're not having problems with the different drugs that we may encounter, that we may use or we might use in the future. Now, in here we have the table for schedule categories of controlled substances. These are medications that have high potential for abuse and they may cause different problems for the users and the abusers. So, rank 1 will be the strongest, wherein rank 5 will be just a strong type of medication. However, these are still dangerous drugs or controlled substances. For rank 1, the most common is the heroin, the LSD or the lysergic acid, diethylamide, and then we also have the cannabis or the marijuana and the others. Again, these substances, they have no currently accepted medical use. Some people may argue that marijuana is very useful, but not really because they have not yet surpassed the proper usage. It is just that they're making their own assumptions without doing the research with regards to these drugs. And then they have high potential for abuse, which is why it could cause dangers to the receivers. Another one will be level 2 or rank 2, wherein the common ones are cocaine, methamphetamine, hydromorphone, meperidine, oxycodone, fentanyl, and dextroamphetamine, and the amphetamine itself. Now, these substances have a high potential for abuse and they may lead to severe psychological or physical dependence. Rank number 3 or schedule number 3, common ones are codeine or 90 milligrams of codeine, ketamine, anabolic steroids, and testosterone. They have a potential for abuse, though less than Schedule 1 and 2. However, they may lead to moderate or low physical dependence or even high psychological dependence. Rank number 4, you have your diazepam, lorazepam, and tramadol. They have low potential for abuse relative to the substance in Schedule 3. However, these are strong painkiller types of medications used by anesthesiologists during different surgical procedures. Number 5 or schedule number 5, we have 200 milligrams of codeine per 100 ml of guaifenesin. Then you have atropine and pregabalin. So they consist of primarily preparations with limited quantities of certain narcotics. For the federal legislation, there have been many different amendments laws and acts with regards to the medications and drugs. In 1912, we have the Shirley Amendment, wherein there is prohibition of false therapeutic claims on drug labels. It is important that labeling of medications be properly done so as to avoid the death of people, especially on infants. And during this amendment, the government had to approve the intent to defraud before a drug could be removed from the market. For the Harrison Narcotic Tax Act, we have required prescriptions for drugs that exceed set narcotic limits. It is also mandated to increase the records keeping physicians and pharmacists updated. Then we have the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Acts. This is to ensure the drug safety before marketing. And remember, it is the FDA's responsibility to ensure that all drugs are tested for harmful effects. It is also required that drugs be labeled with accurate information and have detailed literature in drug packaging so that there will be explanation on the various adverse effects of the medication. Then we have the Durham-Humphrey Amendment. This is done to or amended to distinguish between the drugs that could be sold, whether it could be an OTC drug or a prescription drug. Another one is the Kefauver-Harris Amendment, resulted from widely publicized thalidomide tragedy in 1950s, wherein uh, patients are taking these types of medication or the sedative hypnotic medication when they are in the trimester of pregnancy. So this is done to prevent extreme deformities for infants during pregnancy. Then we have the Drug Abuse Control Amendment, which attempted to control the abuse of depressants, stimulants, and hallucinogens, which are ongoing in the market, especially in the black market during their time. In the 1970s, the Congress passed the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act. This act designed to remedy the escalating problem of drug abuse. So, they promoted drug education and prevention of drug dependence. They strengthened the enforcement authority, and they established treatment and rehabilitation facilities for the patients, and the designation of schedules and categories for controlled substances. Because remember, they are ranked in 5 terms or 5 schedules, and these drugs have high potential for abuse depending on their ranking. Then we have the Orphan Drug Act, which was designed to promote the development and manufacture of drugs used in the treatment of rare diseases, which is the orphan drug. The Act's 3 primary incentives are the federal funding of grants and contracts to perform clinical trials of orphan drugs or the prototype drugs, a 50% tax credit for cost of clinical testing, and exclusive rights to market the drug for 7 years from marketing approval date. So the dietary supplement, however, in 1994 is established for labeling requirements for dietary supplements and authorized the FDA to promote safe manufacturing practices. For the third one, 1996, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, HIPPA, protects health insurance coverage for workers who change or lose their jobs. For example, you're working in a specific place and you have paid a significant amount on different insurance companies or insurance terms, just like the SSS or the PhilHealth or the different or other types of insurance. This will not be removed from you even when you resigned from the organization where you're currently working. The money will still remain unless otherwise the insurance is within the terms of the company. The money that you have spent or that you have paid will and must be returned to you as part of your deductions from your salary. Next, you have your Food and Drug Administration Modernization Act. You have your five provisions in this one, wherein there is a review, there is a test, there are clinical trial data, there are drug companies which are required to give information on off-label or non-FDA approved drug use and costs. And drug companies that plan to discontinue drugs must inform health professionals and patients 6 months before, or at least 6 months before stopping the drug production. For the Best Pharmaceuticals for Children Act, the BPCA gives manufacturers 6-month extension of patients to evaluate drugs on the market for the safety of children. The Pediatric Research Equity Act, however, authorizes the FDA to require that drug manufacturers test certain drugs for their safety and effectiveness in children. Remember that children are not small adults, they are developing humans. Hence, different drugs must be dosed properly for the benefit of the children. Now, the Food and Drug Administration Amendment Act allows the FDA to do more comprehensive reviews of potential new drugs. And of course, post-marketing safety studies and the effects on the distribution of drugs. Now, the other one, the Patients Protection and Affordable Care Act, it was signed into law in 2010, became effective in 2014, wherein essential provisions of the reform include quality and affordable health care for all Americans, improved quality and efficiency of health care, prevention of chronic disease, improved access to innovative medical therapies, and community living service and supports. And lastly, the Food and Drug Administration Safety and Innovation Act. This one is signed on July 9, 2012. It strengthens the FDA's ability to safeguard and advance public health. For the Nurse Practice Acts, always remember that nurses cannot prescribe or administer drugs without a healthcare provider's order, except for one type of nurse, which is the advanced nurse practitioner. They have their own clinics, they have their own licenses for prescribing different medications, but in limited degrees only. Practicing nurses, always remember that the license that we have will give us the authority to help patients to recover from illnesses. However, always remember the limits of our licenses. Nurses who administer a drug without licensed provider's order is in violation of the Nurse Practice Act, wherein the licenses can be revoked. Always remember that it should be ordered first by the doctor in giving specific medications to patients, especially in the ward or in the ICU or even in the operating room and other settings in the hospital. In a civil court, nurses can be persecuted for the following reasons in terms of drug administration. Number one, giving the wrong drug, giving the wrong dosage of a drug, omitting the drug dose. Remember, the drug dose for children is different from the adult, which is why we must be careful in computing for the drug dose for children. And lastly, giving the drug in the wrong route. So we must be careful. We must always read carefully the doctor's orders. The initiatives to combat drug counterfeiting has happened for a long time, wherein it is noted and known that counterfeit drugs are circulating around the world. 10% of all the drugs are counterfeit around the world, wherein they may contain incorrect ingredients, improper amount of the medications, and they could contain impurities and contaminants. The most common drugs counterfeited are those used in treating erectile dysfunction, in treating high cholesterol, in treating hypertension, infection, cancer, HIV, and AIDS. So the high cost of drugs combined with the need for prescription drugs to treat chronic diseases as well as desire by consumers to misuse drugs, it generates a constant demand easily filled by criminals via rogue internet drug sites. So we must be careful in ordering medications online. The FDA and consumer groups are working on strategies to combat these problems, including tougher oversight distributors, rapid alert system, and better informed consumers. Now, as nurses, our role is critical in consumer education. The nurse must always advise patients to report the differences on the tastes, appearance, and even the packaging of specific medications. Patients should be alert to slight variations in packaging or labeling, note any unexpected side effects, and proper buying of drugs in or from proper distributors or reputable sources. Just a little review. Remember the drug names. Drugs have several names. The chemical names describe the drug's chemical structure. Again, for example, is the potassium chloride or the magnesium sulfate. They are named as so. Another one would be the generic name, the official name of a medication. It is also known as non-proprietary name for the drug. This is not owned by any drug company, so most of them give direction on the type of drug that could be manufactured. However, it could be given a name. which would be the brand or trade name. It's also known as the proprietary name, depending on the manufacturer. So, when a drug company issued a brand name for a generic medicine, they should and must register a trademark for the medication that they so desire. Another one is drug companies market compound using its brand name. So the FDA publishes a list of approved generic drugs that are bioequivalent to brand name drugs. Generic drugs have the same active ingredients as brand name drugs but are usually less expensive because manufacturers do not have to do extensive testing. These drugs were clinically tested for the safety and efficacy by the pharmaceutical company that first formulated the drug. However, all drugs have varying inert fillers, binders, and excipients used to shape the tablet and control how fast or slow the drug is released in the body. And these factors may result in the variation in drug bioavailability, which is why we should remember that brand names are just brand names given by the different companies who created them. However, for the generic name, it is a generalized name for a specific drug that functions in a specific way. Again, over-the-counter drugs, these are products with active ingredients, including the amount in each dosage unit. The purpose of the product is there. The uses, indications for the product. There are also specific warnings, dosage instructions, products and active ingredients written in the name of these over-the-counter drugs, and they are available and they are not needing direct supervision from the healthcare providers. The OTC drugs are available with some restrictions. There are specific OTC drugs that have limit on how many could be bought by the clients or by the consumers. Drug resources, they are resources and references that are available. For example, is the AHFS or the American Hospital Formulary Service drug information. They provide accurate and complete drug information, not only for the healthcare provider but also for the consumer. Another one is the United States Pharmacopoeia or the drug information. This is available in most hospitals. It provides drug information, the use of the drug, the function of the drug, the side effects and the adverse effect, the medical letter on drugs and are non-profit publications of physicians or for physicians and nurse practitioners. They give bi-weekly issues on new FDA-approved drugs. For the prescribers' letters, it is a newsletter published monthly by the Therapeutic Research Center in California. They give updates on the new medications, the latest medications, and various uses of older drugs with FDA warnings. Now we have the label for our medications. It is always important to see the labels as they explain which is inside the medication, what are the active ingredients, for example, the uses, the warnings, the considerations, the directions, the facts, and the inactive ingredients in the medication. For the sources of drugs, they are natural sources. Again, just a review. You have your plants, one of the oldest forms of healthcare, the herbal medications from different cultures and societies. Chemists were making remarkable progress, isolating specific substances from complex mixtures, which enable scientists to isolate active ingredients from scarce natural sources. Example is the morphine. Another example is cocaine from cocoa leaves. From animals, you have the biologics. These are agents that are naturally produced in animal cells, microorganisms, or in our body, just like the stem cells, the hormones, the antibodies, blood products such as the PAC-RBCs, fresh frozen plasmas, and the whole blood, which could help people who are suffering from anemia. You also have interferons and vaccines. Another example is the inorganic compounds, just like the lithium carbonate and cisplatin, or the drugs that are formulated in the laboratories, such as ecstasy and moly, also known as synthetic drugs. They are stimulants that mimic the effects of cocaine. These synthetics, the examples are not medications, but those are abused drugs. Drug evaluation. It is a series of scientific tests to evaluate the actual therapeutic and toxic effects of the chemicals. What is that? We need to know if the medications or the drugs that are being created or synthesized by the pharmacists, pharmacologists, and chemical engineers are functional, they are practical, and useful for various types of patients. Now, here are the steps. We start with the preclinical trial wherein testing is done on different animals. They would note the toxicity, the different doses that they would test out, and the prediction on the effects of the drugs on humans. Also, it will reflect human response on the drugs. It may overestimate or underestimate the actual risk to humans. Always remember that preclinical trials should be well documented and it should be properly checked if the medications on various animals, various organisms are harmful. For the orphan drug, these drugs have been discovered but are not financially viable. They are to be adapted by any drug company. So these are prototypes of any forms of medication. The criteria for this one is they could lack therapeutic activity, could be too toxic, teratogenic, and small margin of safety. Always note that they could be abandoned on preclinical trials or the phase 1 of studies since they are prototypes of different medications. For this, phases of drug evaluations, once the orphan drug is tested, for the phase 1, chemicals are cleared for human testing. And these are significant for therapeutic benefits. Testing done on healthy male subjects, and companies may begin a brand name. So for the orphan drug, they could be discarded in the phase 1 and they could not or could be discontinued for the next phases. Again, they could lack therapeutic activities on humans, could be useful in animals but not humans. They could be too toxic, could produce unacceptable side effects, and they are highly poisonous. For the phase 2, chemicals are cleared for limited clinical studies. Some of them may not continue to the next criteria, could be toxic, and unacceptable, but it would depend on the varying doses. Phase 3 still the same. However, for large scale studies, may not be advanced further depending on the type of the criteria of the patient, and also produce unacceptable side effects and unexpected responses. For the phase 4 or the last one, um, uh, drugs are then approved for marketing by the FDA and, however, could still continue with their evaluation. That would be all for the week 1 of the pharmacology. The dosage forms will be discussed next week for the recorded lessons. And if you have any questions with the phase 1 or the week 1 of our lesson here in pharmacology, just send me a message or you can ask me through your canvas. I hope you understand and have learned the lessons properly. And again, please buy the book. You would be needing that book for your um, pharmacology class. Remember, they are or the drugs that we'll be learning are incorporated in all parts of your um, board exam. So thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.